Hi crafty friends, it's Shana from ShanoukiArt. Welcome to episode 5 of Art Journal August. We're going to use the small white envelope to create a page extension. The envelope is rather old, so the sticky stuff is rather sticky. I've just used my palette knife to unstick the flap. You don't need an envelope to create a page extension. You can use a piece of cardstock. That'll be a slightly different method. I have a heap of these small white envelopes and I'd like to use some up. Using my glue stick, I've applied glue to the flap part of the envelope and I've stuck the flap to the other side of my page. As you can see, this extends my page. Now you could use this envelope as a holder for ephemera or any kind of artwork. I'm actually going to seal mine up and it's just going to be part of the page, but you're welcome to do whatever you want with your envelope. And I'm going to start with my base layer of collage. I'm going to be using sheet music. You can use any kind of scrap paper that you have. You could use old book pages or even pretty scrapbook paper. I'm also adding a layer of Mod Podge over my collage because I'm going to add lots of paint and wet medium over the top. I'm also going to add some contrasting bits. I have some black and white die cuts and I'm going to use some of these as part of the collage. I'm not overthinking it too much. I've sort of found a location for these and I'm going to paste them down. The key words throughout this series is don't overthink it and let the page create itself. Another great way to add texture to your background is to punch holes or shapes into your collage paper. For example, here I've punched a hole. I'm going to use the circle part later on in the project, and now I'm actually just pasting down the negative piece that has the hole cut out. You will see as this page progresses how that is going to affect the color on top and how it's going to add dimension. I'm now going to add my gesso. I'm applying a full layer on the background paper here because I'm going to be adding a lot of paint medium and I don't want that to seep through or to weaken the paper. And then I'm also adding some lightly over my collage paper that I've put down just to lighten everything and push it into the background. There's no right and wrong way of adding gesso at this point. Just go on and add it with a paintbrush. And if you find that you've applied maybe too much while the gesso is still wet, you can just use a baby wipe to wipe it off. I've dried my gesso well. I'm now going to add some more collage paper, this time with some different colors. This will guide the page with what colors we're going to use. This is a great spot to use up your scrap papers or perhaps a piece of scrapbook paper that is not quite your favorite. Always adding Mod Podge over the top of the collage papers. I'm going to add some masking tape for additional texture. I love the effect this leaves when you paint over it. It gives your page so much dimension. And another layer of gesso. So as you can see, when I do my art journaling, I like to build up my layers. And although I'm covering up a lot of what I've done underneath, some of it does shine through and add to the overall look. Of course, there are many ways to do this. I'm just showing you the way I do it and how my technique has developed. Next, I'm going to add some paint mediums. I'm picking pinks and burgundies. That's picking up the colors from that scrapbook paper I put down earlier. And I'm first working with this, which is actually an acrylic crayon. I found these at Kmart here in Australia. And I absolutely love them. They've got a bit of a metallic finish. They've got beautiful colors. They go on really smooth, a little bit like an oil pastel. but you can add water to them and blend them while they're wet, but then they also dry really well and don't smudge. Not overthinking where I'm putting it, I'm just putting the color down, but trying to balance where I've actually placed the color. I'm going to add this little striped black and white strip on the far end. I think that is great contrast next to the dark pink. And the little offcut piece will go on the left. Do you see how that makes the whole page cohesive? Because I've used that same element on the left. I'm then using my black watercolor pencil. I'm dipping the tip in some water and I'm actually holding the pencil near the middle or near the far end. So it's very loose and I'm using my wrist to make very rough circles around the pink areas. We're not looking for perfect circles, we're just making marks. The next color I want to add is like a turquoisey green. I've got these two colors that I'm going to blend and just see what I get. I think pink and turquoise goes really well. And using a flat paintbrush, I'm just going to make some marks at the bottom of this page. I don't really have planned what I'm doing at this point. I'm just going for it. And then to create some balance, I'm going to use the same color and create a similar shape on the other page, sort of on the top right. And spreading that color around with some splatter. You don't have to always use a paintbrush, you can use your fingers, get stuck in there. I'm using the lighter color that I've used and just going over the edges of the page and basically just finger painting. While going through my magazine, I did find this beautiful flower, which has got a beautiful color, which I think suits my page really well. So I'm going to fussy cut out the flower and use it as part of my layout. Always be on the lookout for elements like this when you're paging through a magazine. You'd be amazed at what you find. And as I was cutting this out, I really liked that number 62. So I've kept that. I'm going to use that too. And I'm then going to stick my flower down. I'm not putting the entire flower on the page. I sort of have it a little bit hanging off and I'm going to trim the excess. I feel that if I stick the entire flower sort of in the middle, it'll be a little bit too much. I want it slightly off the page. And then I'm going to find a spot for that number 62. After drying it, trimming off the excess. I want to add a little bit more of that lighter blue turquoise. I'm going in directly with the solid color of acrylic. I'm sort of putting it on the edge of the page and then I'm spraying water and adding lots of water and letting that color run down. So it sort of blends from darker to lighter, from the page edge to the center. Using my watercolor pencil again, I'm going to define these circles too, do some more mark making. And if you want to have them really wonky, you can draw them using your non-dominant hand. I'm feeling my magazine flower is getting a little lost. It's not really standing out. So I want to create a little bit of a contrast. I'm using my black watercolor pencil to go just between the petals, and then I'm going to use a small wet paintbrush just to sort of blend that out. It's going to create sort of like a shadow behind the flower, which will help it stand out and pop off the page a bit. You're probably thinking, oh, what is she doing? All that black is not looking great. Don't be afraid of black. Don't be afraid of messing up. Try new things. You'll see this will actually look great in the end, although we might be doubting what it looks like at the moment. It's okay if you don't love it, and it's okay if it's not how you pictured. Just be free to try things. I want to extend the turquoise color out a bit more, so I'm going to add some paint splatter. I'm just covering the areas that I don't want to have that paint on, and then I'm putting quite a bit of water in that turquoise color and using a paintbrush to just splash it over most of the page. I still have the circle that I punched out in the beginning from that black and white paper, and I want to add that somewhere. I think it'll look great there. It sort of balances everything out and fills that gap a little bit. I also want to add a sentiment. I love adding sentiments to my art journal pages. I feel it finishes them off in most cases. And although the sentiment can probably look good in a multitude of places on your page, just find one where you feel it is pleasing to the eye. I'm now going to fold over my page extension, and we want to do something on this side. Adding the scrap paper underneath so we don't make a mess, I'm going to cover the entire area with a dark turquoise. This acrylic paint that I have is a little thinner, it's not quite thick, so it does leave like stripe or streak marks as you paint it. I personally don't mind because I like that. I didn't want full coverage, but you can put multiple layers if you want it thicker. Inspired by the little number 62 that I pasted down, I'm going to use my number stencil and I'm going to place it over the wet paint and then use a baby wipe and go over the stencil openings. This will lift some of the color that I had just put down. And you don't need a number stencil for this part. You can use any stencil design that you have. I want this stencil design to be a little bit more bold, so I'm going to go over some of the areas with white gesso. I'm reapplying the stencil over the design, and then I'm using my palette knife with some gesso to go over the stencil. I feel the numbers weren't quite bright enough, so we're going to brighten them by making them white. Something more is needed on the inside. I'm not quite happy with that plain white space in the middle, so I have this tissue paper with some scribbles on that I'm going to paste in that area. This tissue paper is available from ArtStacks. It is my design that is on the tissue paper. There is a link to the shop in the description box below. And to create balance, I'm going to add a small piece of the same tissue paper in the bottom right-hand corner. And then I'm trying to decide if I need an additional piece on this end. So I'll place it down and have a look and just see if it's creating balance or if it's maybe too much. I decide that I'm going to go with it, so I stick another small piece on this end. Going to do a once over with the dryer just to make sure everything is nice and dry. Trim off the excess of my little circle. And then I have a look over and just see if I need to add anything else. I'm feeling I need a bit more of that turquoise somewhere, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the splatter. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Art Journal August. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and then hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Here is a close-up of the page so you can see all the details, all the underlayers shining through, and all that blending and yumminess. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.